All right, everybody. Good afternoon. Hope you guys are doing well today as we cruise towards the weekend here. We got some stuff to talk about with regards to this Seattle Seahawks coaching staff as we head towards the weekend, because as time goes by and as more things happen, I think it becomes more and more clear that this Seattle Seahawks team is going to be looking for some new coaches this offseason. Obviously not the head coach, we're good there, and there are going to be some coordinators and some assistants that stick around, but I definitely think that just because we still have games left, and we do have games left, and hopefully we have 3 games left all the way to the Super Bowl, it doesn't mean we can't start coping with reality here. It doesn't mean we can't start accepting the reality that it looks like Klint Kubiak will be gone this offseason. So let's have a little bit of a conversation about that now and talk about life after Klint Kubiak. This video is sponsored by Manta and their product, the Pro Sleep Mask. Are you tired of waking up every morning before your alarm goes off because the sun hits your face? Then the Manta Pro Sleep Mask is the product for you. It blocks out every bit of light so you stay asleep. With the Manta Pro Sleep Mask, you get a total blackout experience when you try to sleep. The memory foam eye cups adjust to your face for a pressure-free fit, and the cooling material that makes up the mask makes sure you stay comfortable even if you're a hot sleeper. If you're interested, go to mantasleep.com to look up not only their sleep mask product, but their many other products associated with giving you a better night's sleep. Don't forget to check out their mask accessories so you can customize your sleep experience for the best possible night. And while you're there, don't forget to use my promo code SBN to unlock 10% off your purchase. Okay, so Klint Kubiak has, according to a couple reports here, I've got a Greg Bell article on screen, has completed 2 of his 5 remote interviews for NFL head coaching jobs now, and there's reason to believe that he's gonna do the remaining 3 over the weekend. So, at the very least, the thing that we can conclude now is that Klint Kubiak is interested in being a head coach. One of the ways in which Kubiak would not have become a head coach this offseason, and the most likely way it would have happened, would have been if he didn't want it. But the fact that he's interviewing indicates that he is at least open to it. So, again, just understanding the reality of the situation, it looks like he's gonna go. He could change his mind like Ben Johnson did a couple years ago. That's possible, but I wouldn't count on it. So let's assume that doesn't happen. He could be bad in the interview process. That's another thing that could happen that could prevent him from being a head coach. He could get in a situation where, because Seattle goes to the Super Bowl, he's not able to complete the process of going through the interviews until February, mid-February maybe, and therefore other teams kind of get scared and hire somebody else because they don't want to be left with nobody to hire. There are a couple different ways where Kubiak won't be hired as a head coach this offseason, but I think it's becoming increasingly clear that the odds of those things happening are getting low. There are so many teams interested. Somebody's going to be willing to wait for him, even if Seattle plays in the Super Bowl. And there's going to be at least one team that holds back long enough to hire him, even if they have to wait until the second or third week of February to do so. So it looks like Kubiak's gone. And I want to talk about what the Seahawks could do to replace him. There are a ton of different options out there, but I want to go through some of the most commonly brought up ones. And I want to talk about some of the ones that are at least somewhat intriguing to me. So let's start by talking about the possibility of an in-house promotion, because that's going to be the most immediately intriguing option because it's right in front of you. And I guess you could say that these guys have been under Kubiak for a year. Therefore, maybe they picked up some of his offense and picked up some of his knowledge, and maybe there could be a little bit of a smooth transition there. So let's talk about some of the in-house options. The most likely guy to become an offensive coordinator from lower in our staff would be Jake Peetz. Jake Peetz has been here for a couple years now. Obviously, he was on the staff underneath Kubiak this year. He initially, I believe, comes from the Rams. He was under McVay with LA for a little bit there, and he has interviewed for an OC job in previous seasons. I know he was under consideration to become the offensive coordinator for Seattle last offseason. So Jake Peetz is interesting. However, as you can see here, I've got this tweet up from Mike Garofalo. There is already a level of interest in someone else getting Jake Peetz. We have the Lions supposedly interviewing him for their OC job this week. So there's already going to be some movement here. And look, Seattle has some good offensive talent. Seattle has some good stuff in place. But if an offensive guy has the opportunity to go work with that Detroit Lions roster, they're probably going to take it. They've got so much great stuff in place. It's, in my mind, clearly better than what Seattle has. And that's no knock to what Seattle has, but look at how stacked Detroit's offensive roster is. So if Jake Peetz has the opportunity to go call plays in Detroit, I imagine that he would jump all over that. So he could be gone. And there are two other guys that I think could be explored lower on the coaching staff. You have John Benton, who is currently the offensive line coach. He was the offensive line coach in New Orleans under Kubiak last year. He's been a coach in some capacity in the NFL for over 20 years, I believe, or at the very least close to it. Started out with the Rams, was with the Texans, Dolphins, Jaguars, 49ers for several years under Shanahan. So he is from that Shanahan tree a little bit. He's obviously a Kubiak acolyte. And then you have Andrew Janocko, who has been in the NFL since 2015, I believe. So over a decade of NFL experience. Started with the Vikings, which is where Kubiak was for a little bit. And then he was the quarterback coach with the Saints, and now he's the quarterback coach here. So he's another guy who is clearly attached to Kubiak. The issue is, would these guys just follow Kubiak if Kubiak leaves? The answer is probably yes. After all, they followed Kubiak here, so you would kind of expect them to be willing to follow him somewhere else. And obviously that decision has paid off for them. So if they have the opportunity to go be underneath Kubiak in a place like Atlanta, they might take it. Now, the caveat to that is Seattle might be able to give them play calling duties, whereas wherever Kubiak goes might not, because Kubiak would want to call the plays. So maybe Seattle would be more appealing to them than wherever Kubiak goes, but that's one of those things that's hard to know. But to take a step back and talk about these three guys in general, Janocko, Benton, and Jake Peetz, none of them have called plays before in the NFL. I don't think any of them have called plays even at the college level, but I know they haven't in the NFL. So you are talking about taking a team that had an established, proven offensive coordinator in Kubiak, and you're asking somebody who maybe comes from the Kubiak tree a little bit, but has never called plays before to learn on the fly. And if you want to know why that might be a bad idea, look at the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles had Kellen Moore last year, proven track record of success as a play caller, won the Super Bowl. They lose Kellen Moore to New Orleans, and they promote somebody on their staff who had never called plays before. And what happened? They've been a big disappointment offensively, especially earlier in the season this year, and that is probably going to be the thing that keeps them from having a realistic chance at repeating. So it's hard to imagine that these three guys would be able to just step right in, hit the gas, and everything would be great. There'd probably be a big learning curve, and there's a chance that they're never going to be good at it. So there are some real issues with trying to take this path here. If you want to look outside the team, which is generally what I would prefer, I'm definitely trying to get somebody outside the team who comes from the same stock as Kubiak, but isn't somebody who's just an underling that glommed himself onto Kubiak and might be riding his coattails a little bit. I want to go get somebody that had success elsewhere. Now, there were two kind of dream guys, and most Seahawks fans have already spoken on this in previous conversations about this. You have Mike McDaniel, the former Miami Dolphins head coach who got fired a couple days ago, or no, actually, I think he got fired yesterday. So you have McDaniel, a guy who comes from the Shanahan tree like Kubiak did, a guy who has proven success as a play caller. He was very successful in Miami. The stuff he did a couple years ago with that team is pretty phenomenal. working with some good talent, but not overwhelmingly good talent. And then you have Kevin Stefanski, who had great success in Cleveland, given how little he got to work with. He won Coach of the Year twice. He got that Cleveland team to the playoffs twice. He won a playoff game. And then he got pushed out, mostly because, if we're being perfectly honest, he got saddled with the Deshaun Watson situation and there was no way out. Hard for me to hold that against him. Now, both of these guys would be, I think, fantastic. I think that McDaniel in particular would be exactly what we want. And while Stefanski is not quite the stylistic fit that McDaniel would be, I do think that Stefanski's offensive brilliance would overcome that. The problem is, and this is kind of, you can already see it in the two tweets I'm pulling up here, there's a very good chance both of these guys become head coaches again. Mike McDaniel is interviewing for the Titans head coaching job next week, and Kevin Stefanski is interviewing with the Baltimore Ravens for their head coaching job. So do the math. It's very likely, with all the openings that we have and the openings that we're likely to have after this upcoming week, I think one or two more spots could open up. You are probably going to see Stefanski and McDaniel get head coaching jobs. If you don't, then it becomes interesting. But supposedly, the Lions are already making moves on Mike McDaniel. So if the Lions move on Mike McDaniel, the Lions are already out of the playoffs. They can just go hire him next week if they want to. They could hire him today in theory. And Seattle can't make a move on McDaniel until after they're eliminated, which could be in a month. So getting McDaniel is hard because of the timing. If Detroit wants him, and again, I want to stress this, Detroit, incredible offensive talent on that roster. You got to believe they can get McDaniel if they go for it. So really, really hard to get McDaniel and really, really hard to get Stefanski. I don't think either of these guys are realistic possibilities. And I want to stress, I'd be all over it. All right, let's go through a few more names here. Those are the really high-profile guys, but I want to talk about some other potential candidates. If Matt LaFleur gets fired, let's say the Packers lose tomorrow to the Bears, there's a chance LaFleur gets fired. And if he's fired, maybe he gets a head coaching job, but maybe not. I don't know. That Packers team was stuck on the treadmill for a few years here. I like LaFleur's offense a lot. I think the stuff that he did with a very limited quarterback like Jordan Love is very, very impressive. I think that the stuff that he did to disguise the fact that Green Bay doesn't have a true number one receiver and never really did while he was there, it felt like, was really, really well, except for Devontae Adams. But I think LaFleur did some really good work there. And you take a look at his track record as a head coach. He did great stuff with Rodgers, and he was doing great stuff with Jordan Love. I know it seems like it stalled out a little bit, but for my money, I think that he did well there. I think Jordan Love may not be everything that we thought he would be when the Packers got him and then the Packers signed him to that deal. And I think that there have been some extenuating circumstances in Green Bay that have made it a little bit hard for him to get back to greatness. But this is another guy from the Shanahan tree. He was with the Rams for years in OC. He was with the Titans for a year as OC. He's called plays, I believe, the entire time he's been in Green Bay. So if you could get Matt LaFleur as your offensive coordinator, even if it's just for a year for him to rebuild his reputation so he can become a head coach next year, I think that's great. Now, moving on, let's go to his brother, Mike LaFleur. Mike LaFleur, the younger brother of Matt LaFleur, currently the offensive coordinator on the Rams. He's been there the last 3 years. Now, the issue here is that he's not calling plays. I know he's called plays for a couple of games with LA, but he generally does not call plays. So you are hoping that he picked up a lot of knowledge from McVay without actually calling the offense there. The mitigating factor is that he did call plays with the New York Jets in 2021 and 2022. Now, both those offenses were very bad, but he also had some pretty lackluster players to work with. Uh, there's a there is a little bit of a track record of him at least calling plays, and then he's had the last 3 years to learn what he can learn from McVay. So I do think that it's possible that Mike LaFleur could be the guy. It's another guy from the same tree. And this might work well if you end up striking out on some of the bigger name guys, or the bigger name guys just don't work out for you. Okay, I'm gonna go through another couple of names here that I don't think would work, but I do wanna talk about them because a lot of people would at least wonder. So I'm gonna start with Brian Daboll. So there are a couple problems with Brian Daboll. I think the biggest one would just be his personality. Let's walk through this a little bit here. So a couple years ago, the New York Giants had Brian Daboll as head coach and Wink Martindale as the defensive coordinator. Wink Martindale is basically the guy who was he kind of taught Mike McDonald a lot of the stuff that Mike McDonald knows. Like he is in many ways, Mike McDonald is kind of Wink Martindale's understudy. So Wink Martindale is the DC under Daboll, and that marriage breaks up a couple years ago, and it's pretty clear to me anyway that it broke up poorly. It ended poorly, and it was one of those things where clearly the two guys did not like each other. So if Mike McDonald calls up Wink Martindale and asks him, "Hey, should I hire this Brian Daboll guy?" I think I know what Wink Martindale would say, and it would not be friendly. It would not be positive. So I think that would kind of disqualify him just from the get-go. So that's number one. Number two, Brian Daboll, what can we really say about him at this point? Because the idea was, well, he was the offensive coordinator for 4 years in Buffalo. He oversaw Josh Allen going from a very inexperienced and not particularly effective player to one of the great quarterbacks in the NFL. But, excuse me, then you see Brian Daboll leave Buffalo, and Josh Allen has only gotten better since then. So it's kind of like, okay, what did you really do for Josh Allen? Were you really that important to Josh Allen? In fact, some would say that he's better off without Brian Daboll. Then he goes to New York. He gets one decent season out of Daniel Jones, and then Daniel Jones just crashes back to earth pretty hard, right? So what do we really say about that? Other than, I don't know if he's a quarterback guru. I don't know if he's a great offensive mind. Look how bad he's been as a head coach. The Giants had one okay season, surprisingly, his first year, and since then they've gotten nothing but worse. Seems like he's a bad personality, and maybe the biggest problem, his offense is based around shotgun, RPO, straight drop back stuff. It's not the Shanahan offense. It's very different than this Shanahan offense. And it's not an offense that I think can have success with Sam Darnold. Do you see Sam Darnold running RPO 10 times a game? I don't. Sam Darnold needs to be in an under center offense with a lot of play action and a lot of running. And I don't think Brian Daboll can coach that kind of an offense. So I don't think Daboll works. And for all the reasons that I just went over, I don't think Mike Kafka works either because he is underneath Daboll in New York. Same basic idea. So Mike Kafka did take over as the head coach of the Giants at the end of the season after Daboll got fired. Didn't really do too much better than Daboll was doing. If you want to take a look at his track record as an OC, because he did occasionally call plays, he did do some good things. Like that first year, he did a really good job getting a lot out of an offense that was pretty limited with their talent. But again, it's it's just that whole thing where it is an offense based off in shotgun, running RPO, and doing straight drop back. Not a lot of play action, not a lot of under center. You don't see that in the Buffalo or the Giants offense, I feel like. And that's the issue. Now, Mike Kafka originally came out from under Andy Reid, and I love Andy Reid. I don't know if that is the kind of thing that I'm looking for with this group of talent, especially with how successful they were under a Shanahan style offense with Kubiak. All right, so those two guys to me, I like them at least in terms of their football knowledge. I don't think they work for what we have right now. Sorry if you can hear the leaf blower, by the way. Got Todd Monken here. I know some people are going to be talking about him. He's an interesting one. Mostly, he's riding off the reputation of Baltimore the last two seasons before this one when they were really good offensively, and what he did at the University of Georgia back when he was the coach there, the OC there. This most recent year, he did not do very well, although there were a lot of injuries. I don't think it's all his fault. And again, it's one of those things where he had a bunch of success in Georgia, and then he had a lot of success in Baltimore with Lamar Jackson. We don't have a Lamar Jackson. We don't have a player that plays anything like Lamar Jackson. I don't know. I don't know about this one. This one, I'm not gonna say I'm closed off to it, but I don't know if I think it would work. I'm a little bit unsure. Maybe he would really help our run game. Maybe he could take our run game to the next level because obviously Baltimore has been remarkable running the ball the last 3 years, but there are reasons why that have nothing to do with Todd Monken. Brian Callahan is another kind of interesting name, father of Bill Callahan, or no, his father is Bill Callahan. So it's another kind of nepotism hire that's worked okay. Although maybe it's a bad time for me to say that because his head coaching career in Tennessee was a complete disaster. He did not even last a season and a half before getting fired. Could not have been worse, could not have been more disastrous. And I think that the upshot here is that he will never get hired as a head coach again, or at least not for another 10 years. So if you get him and he's good, you've got him forever. But the problem is the positive reputation that Callahan has is from the Bengals. And the Bengals did not let him call plays. Zach Taylor calls the plays in Cincinnati. So therefore, the only play calling experience he has was in Tennessee, and Tennessee was terrible both years, offensively and overall. So you are definitely hoping that he finds something that he did not find in Tennessee if he's your OC. And it is one of those things where Zach Taylor comes from the McVay tree because he was uh, under McVay for a little bit there. And then therefore you have Callahan kind of coming from the McVay tree, but he never really touched anything Shanahan. So I don't know if that works. I don't know how well that comes together. So it is a little bit tricky even there. Technically, he comes from the Shanahan tree, but it's a couple of branches off. And just to bring it full circle here, how about Klint Kubiak? This is another one that people are going to talk about because it is the younger brother of Klint Kubiak. Now, Klint has very little experience. He's been on the 49ers staff for the last several years, but he only became the offensive coordinator this most recent year. So 1 year as an OC. He's not calling plays. Shanahan obviously does. So he's a Shanahan guy, but he does not have the experience. He does not have the repertoire. He has not proven that he can do it. So you are betting on him figuring it out and figuring it out fast. Now, he's got the lineage, right? He's got the stock, but I don't know if you want to be messing around with somebody that's never done it before. If you want to go that route, I think there are other guys you could go after. Guys like Adam Stenavich in Green Bay. That's a guy who's been an OC for several years and been part of good offenses under LaFleur, but he hasn't called plays yet. You can go get a couple of other guys out there who haven't called plays that are intriguing. Guys like shoot, what's his name? Let me hold on one second, guys. Right, Frank Smith, a guy who's been under Mike McDaniel in Miami as the offensive coordinator, but doesn't get to call plays. So there are other guys you can go get if this is the route you want to go. There are going to be other names as well. Like maybe somebody will bring up Mike McCarthy, because if McCarthy can't get a head coaching job, he might have to take an OC job for a year. And he did do good work in Dallas, but I think people would be kind of bored by the idea of getting McCarthy as an OC. So I don't know how much I could sell that one. I don't think it would be bad, but I do understand that it would not be very it would not really butter people's biscuits. And there are going to be more guys we can talk about as the offseason goes on, but I just wanted to open up the conversation. Let me know what you guys think. See you guys later. Go Hawks.